So May is Mental Health Month, as you know, and at Talkspace we're doing the state of our mental health, a little video series profiling some people who are doing awesome stuff in the mental health space and talking about how you guys are handling the pandemic and how you are dealing with your own mental health struggles during this time. So just to introduce everybody to you, this is Jamie. He is the founder of To Write Love on Her Arms. He's wearing the shirt, as you can see. He's also a New York Times best-selling author. Great book. If you feel too much, highly recommend. So thank you for being here with us. Do you want to give a little bit of background information on yourself and your organization for people who aren't familiar with it?
Yes, thank you for the warm welcome and the book club. That was very clever. I didn't know that was going to happen.
It was
Uh,
I came up with it last night and I decided.
that was awesome. My name is Jamie Tworkowski, and as you said, I'm the founder of To Write Love on Our Arms, and we got our start in a surprising way all the way back in 2006. So today it's a nonprofit organization, but back then it was just a really simple, humble attempt to tell one story and help one person. And To Write Love on Our Arms was the name of a story I wrote about getting to know a brand new friend. And she, at the time back then, was dealing with all the issues that we now speak to as an organization. So she was dealing with drug addiction, depression, a history of self-injury, and we later learned there had been suicide attempts in her life. And I wrote what I hoped would be a really honest story about 5 days with her after she was denied entry into a treatment center. Shared that on MySpace. Everyone's allowed to giggle. And essentially that story went viral, kind of took on a life of its own. And then I started to sell t-shirts as a way to pay for her treatment. And the t-shirts sort of did the same. And so we started to hear from people. We started to receive orders from people not only in other states, but other countries. And from then to now have kind of gotten to see the best of the internet, the best of social media, the best of people communicating, reaching out, trying to help friends and family members, being vulnerable and admitting their own questions and struggles. And so for 14 years now, we've been inviting people into this conversation, trying to let people know it's okay to be honest, connecting people to professional help, and also paying for professional help. So money that turns into scholarship dollars for counseling and treatment. And yeah, we've been at it ever since. And social media has sort of always been our home base. Obviously, MySpace, we made the transition years ago from MySpace to Facebook to Tumblr and Instagram. And obviously, we have our own website. And in this moment, it's unique because we also typically spend a lot of time on the road, music festivals, tours, college campuses, and all of that has been canceled or is on hold. And so really we can only show up online. And so we're trying to do a lot of that right now.
It's amazing. I was thinking last night about how, obviously, as you said, you started on MySpace so long ago. People who are under the age of, I don't know, like 20 or maybe even
Yeah,
older than that, watching that are gonna be like, what the heck?
sure.
But yeah, I think it's so amazing because now it's really great that people are more open about talking about mental health struggles. Like you'll see it all the time now, people on Instagram being super open about it. But when you guys started out, nobody was talking about it. It was still very taboo. And I feel like your organization almost started like a movement of getting people really, because people would see the shirts, bands on Warped Tour would wear them, bands would post them on MySpace, and people were like, what is that? And then people started, I think opening up and realizing that they are not the only ones who are dealing with this, which I think is like the most important thing with mental health, is for people to know that they're not alone. And I think that you have done a really amazing job at letting people know they're not alone and giving people the resources and the inspiration to, seek help.
Well, thank you. That's very kind. And I agree with you. I think it's gotten better. I think certainly it's true that we kind of, as a society or culturally, people talk more about it. You hear more about it. You see more headlines, and really in all sorts of circles, whether it's professional sports or actors or musicians. I think we see it showing up in so many different places in life. But I still think there's a ton of need. You know, even the studies and numbers indicate that it's weird. You wish that what you just shared meant that things were getting better, and in a way, it's almost like it's gotten better and worse. Where
Yeah.
I think people are more open to the solutions, but the numbers indicate that the problems are getting worse as well. You know, that more people are dealing with anxiety, that suicide rates are on the rise. So I think we're thankful for the good, but we know that the work remains, that there's still such a need, that so many people are struggling. And I also think it's one thing to hear. I think a lot of people are used to hearing about mental health, but it's still another thing to put a hand up and say, I need to talk to someone. I need help. I think it's one thing in theory to believe, hey, people talk about this. It's okay to talk about this, but to actually make an appointment with a counselor or to seek help for addiction, I think is a different thing. And we want people to take those steps, you know, especially people that are really hurting.
Yeah. So that being said, what advice do you have for people who particularly right now can't, physically go to a therapist? Obviously, there's a bunch of online resources, but still it might be hard for somebody to, as you said, like raise their hand and ask for help essentially, and kind of realize that it's okay to get professional help and it's a great thing to get professional help. So what advice do you have for people who are struggling right now, who are kind of toying with the idea of getting professional help but aren't sure how to
Yeah,
do it, or if they aren't sure that they actually need it?
sure. I mean, your question, I think, included the answer in that, you know, seeking professional help will look different. I used to go to counseling and sit on a couch across from my counselor. We were in the same room, and now that has to look different, right? Because of coronavirus. And so uh, the word, or telehealth is what you hear the most, but essentially it just means we can still get help in this time. It's just going to look different. It might happen over the phone or over Skype or some equivalent. And you touched on it being hard, and I think we would just say, or I would just say, that it's it's hard, but we believe it's worth it. And I think we want to remind people that you can still get help in this time, that so many mental health professionals are still working, are still available in this time, and it will look different, but and maybe it will look different, and it's not ideal, which is true of so many things in life right now. But I
Yeah.
think we would just encourage people to try, like to go for it and to see how it feels. I point to the Find Help tool on our website a lot, because we point people to local resources, including free and reduced rate mental health services. So someone can come to our site, click on the words Find Help, enter their zip code, and instantly find resources. We also point to online support groups. So that might be another.
I thought you were going to say points online therapies. I was going to say, I saw you linked to Talkspace on.
Yeah. So Talkspace would be another example, and Crisis Text Line is another
Yeah.
place that we point people to, literally day and night, to know that someone in a moment of hopelessness or crisis in the US, Canada, or the UK, you can always simply send a text and receive a response from a trained crisis counselor. So I
Yeah.
think we know it requires people leaving their comfort zone, but again, we believe it's worth it, because the tendency is to isolate when we're struggling. And so often we need to hear another voice. We need another perspective.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up Crisis Text Line, because I think that's a really good first step for somebody who's nervous, because or if you're in full crisis, and people always tell you to call a suicide hotline. And, there obviously is a time and place for that. But if you're not quite at that level, but you're still in crisis and you're really struggling with your mental health, it's a lot less intimidating, I think, especially for younger people, to send a text
Sure.
than to call, because, I would say for the most part, most people are more comfortable texting.
Oh yeah. And honestly, the research supports that, and they would tell you, and it's not a knock on the old fashioned, you know, phone lines. It's just, this is how we all communicate right now. And what you touched on is so true, that especially when we're thinking about being vulnerable with someone we don't know. So I think it's just meeting people where they are in a way that people are used to communicating. And so I think they've responded to over 100 million messages in something like 7 years.
That's
And
great.
I saw today, this morning, that their network is now over 10,000 crisis counselors. So it's just incredible.
That is amazing. I'm so glad that that is a resource, because I think it's a game changer. Like, the first time I heard about that, I thought it was a great idea. So I'm really glad that it's still
Oh
going
yeah,
strong. Awesome.
they're going so strong, and they've announced some really ambitious goals to grow not only to other countries, but I think they're trying to shift their focus to other languages, and just reaching, I think I forget the date goal, but a goal of reaching 32% of the world's population in the
Wow.
coming years. Yeah, so it's just amazing.
It will be really cool to see what they do.
Yeah.
Um, so let's talk about To Write Love on Her Arms and what you guys are doing. I know that you're doing some things a little bit differently, since, as you said, you're not out on the road. I know you're an amazing speaker. You're always doing talks. You do like all sorts of things. So can you talk a little bit about the Instagram lives that you've been doing, and also the virtual 5K that you have coming up?
Yeah, I would love to. You keep being really kind, so thank you. So yeah, for me, a lot of it typically looks like speaking. I've done a bunch of dates with my friend Noah Gunderson, so kind of opening briefly for him at his shows. Noah's a musician, and then more than that, in recent years, I typically speak at colleges or universities, and like pretty much every event in the world, the physical events are canceled for us, or at least postponed. And so in an attempt to show up for people, that's really been what the Instagram lives are about. And obviously we are not reinventing the wheel. It seems like everyone is live on Instagram right now, but we've chosen to do it twice a week, so Tuesdays and Thursdays at 4 p.m. Eastern. We pretty much always have guests. We have friends of the organization. Some of them work in mental health, but most of them don't. So people, again, from all walks of life. Some of them have really interesting creative careers. I think it feels important to bring in different voices who work in different fields. So it's been cool to sprinkle in licensed counselors, but we've also talked to athletes and musicians and poets, and it's really an attempt to bring encouragement, to create an hour where people feel safe, where we're talking about mental health, we're talking about self-care, trying to give people ideas, things to think about in this time. What does it look like to be healthy? How are friends of the organization? What's been hard for them? What's been helpful for them? And so that's been a privilege, especially for me personally, getting to host a lot of those. And then, as you touched on, I believe it's our 8th annual Run For It 5K. Typically would happen physically. We'd have a race in Central Florida, and we've had right around 1,000 people run. They come to Satellite Beach and run. Typically it's in mid-April, and that had to be canceled for obvious reasons. But we've been able to shift to a virtual race, which simply means that people can run or walk or participate wherever they are. And so I believe we have all 50 states represented. And then I think it's right around 18 countries. So it's really
That's
become
so
this,
cool.
yeah, this awesome global thing. And it's a really cool range where some people are dedicated runners. They love to run, and other people don't at all, and they want to walk, or they're in a wheelchair, or they're pushing a stroller. And it's it's really not about kind of we're not, we're not only looking for diehard runners. We invite people to move for something that matters. That's the tagline. And so the idea is running or participating for a reason that's personal for you. So we have people that show up on behalf of someone they've lost. We have people that participate on behalf of their own recovery, or maybe they're running or walking because there's someone they're concerned about. And then beyond all that, it's become a major fundraiser for the organization. And so this year, our goal is to raise $85,000. We're a little over halfway there. I forget if I said it, but Saturday, May 16th is the new virtual date. And so, yeah, we're taking these opportunities to invite people into it.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. And, it's going to loop in people who, like, I wouldn't, I can't run to save a life.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm definitely more likely to participate in that than a physical run. So
sure,
definitely want to sign up for
one
that.
thing I love is, this is a surprise, but the person on our team that came up with the virtual idea is actually my mom, who, as you can imagine, is older than us because she's my mom. But she's also not a tech savvy woman, but she just had the simple idea of wishing people could participate wherever they are. And so it's actually been a few years now that we've offered that. And I forget at what point, but pretty quickly we realized more people would run virtually than with us in Florida. And so obviously that's very true right now. So shout out to my mom.
Shout out, Mom. That's so cute. I love that. All right. So being stuck at home, virtual life.
Being safe at home.
Being safe at home. Yes.
I say it both ways, but I try to remember it.
Yeah. Putting things in a new perspective.
Yeah.
So how has this whole situation in general, and also being, quarantined at home, how has that affected your mental health personally?
Yeah, good question. I've had an interesting journey with it. I was with my parents. You and I were talking earlier, and I shared it. But I went to Florida. I live in Nashville, and I went back to Florida before the quarantine, before sort of the situation we find ourselves in now. So I went for what I thought would be a few days and ended up spending a month with my parents. And for weeks tried to figure out, should I come back to Nashville? Honestly, wrestling with which is more selfish. Do I stay with my parents? And also I think which is healthier physically, but also emotionally. So just wrestling with staying in Florida indefinitely with my parents versus coming back to Nashville where I live and where I have a house and my own space. So after a month, I made the decision to come back here, which was really emotional and scary. It was hard to know which was right. It was really hard saying goodbye to my mom at the airport. The wondering it again, just which is more selfish, and physically flying home, having a layover and kind of navigating that. But anyway, that was a really tricky transition in the middle of this. It was probably easier to be in Florida because I was with people, like I was with my parents. And certainly there are challenges. I didn't expect to be 40 years old, spending a month living with my parents. But at the same time, I really tried to lean into being grateful for that time with them. So it took a little bit to settle back in here, and it's definitely quieter and it's lonely at times. I think having a dog has helped. Being able to FaceTime friends and family has helped, and taking walks. Even I love my street. I love my neighbors. So even if it's just getting outside and from a safe distance, running into neighbors and saying hello, or saying hello to them and their dogs. So I feel like that's an important thing to point out, not only the professional help piece, but just the relationship and friendship piece as well, that it's easy to think, man, everything is canceled, everything is limited, I'm alone, I have no options. And it feels important to remind people, and to remind myself at times, that I can still go outside and say hello to another human. I can take a walk, at a safe distance with someone. I can FaceTime my nephews back in Florida. I can check in on people. Um, so I think, again, trying to use the technology that we have, and also just the idea that we can go outside, and that there's value in going outside, obviously doing that safely. So I feel okay. And I think also, out of feeling okay, I've tried to show up for people by doing things like Instagram Live. And certainly in the midst of that, I've had my days of being afraid and being anxious or being sad, but I think if I take it one day at a time, it's been really helpful to try to walk through it that way.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was a really long answer.
No, that's great, because not only is that how you are dealing with it, that's also great advice that really anybody can follow. Like anybody anywhere pretty much can, FaceTime, Skype, Zoom, video chat. I think it's so important to keep in touch with people and have human interaction, because without it, we can it's not good. So
Sure.
it's awesome that we have the privilege to be able to keep in touch with family and friends or whoever. And I think also getting outside in a safe way is crucial. Fresh air, vitamin D.
I think,
yeah.
oh, I was just going to share one other thought. I think I've just been trying to mix up my days. And I believe this about self-care in general, but just trying to encourage people. I feel like my days are some work and some reading, and I might take a nap, and I need to take a walk. And so maybe there'll be some meetings like this, or there'll be FaceTimes back home. So just trying to, even within one day, trying to break up what that day looks and feels like. I don't know, that I feel like that's been helpful to me. So not to just get lost doing like hours and hours of Netflix, or but just trying to mix up what my day looks like throughout the day.
Yeah, because as we all know, it's way too easy to get sucked into you're on the couch and then 8 hours later, you're like, oh God, even full series.
Yeah, and we might have days like that. So, but I think even on a day like that, just trying to sprinkle in healthy stuff too. So for me, no matter how I feel, knowing I need to get outside and take my dog for a walk at least once a day, But I think there's room for having grace. We can't beat ourselves up. If you do end up watching a show that you enjoy, you don't have to feel guilty. This is a really unique, hard time. And I've never been a fan of hustle culture. I've never been a fan of just we have to be so productive. And even I feel like some people are trying to do that in this time. And I err on the side of, hey, we got to give ourselves grace, because this is a really hard time. Especially when I think about, there's people on our team that not only are working full time, but they're trying to teach their kids at home, and things are really hard for them.
Yeah, I agree. I've been seeing a lot of posts on Instagram that are use this time to take this course, write your book, learn how to play an instrument, blah, blah, blah. And it's all right, yes, we do have some extra free time, but also a lot of our energy is being spent on just literally coping with this and staying healthy. So I think that we're already doing a lot by taking care of ourselves.
And I just think it's if you want to do those things and it feels good and it feels healthy, then go for it. But please don't feel any pressure.
Yeah.
You don't have to launch your project, or you don't have to perform or create in this time. If you want to and it feels good, then that's awesome. But please don't
don't feel forced.
Yeah.
Yeah. So aside from Crisis Text Line, are there any other organizations right now that you think are doing a really amazing job of supporting people or inspiring people or providing resources or anything like that?
That is a good question. I've seen some really good stuff from AFSP. Oh, sorry, hang on.
That's okay.
I just have to, Okay, hang on. I just have to text this
No
person back.
worries.
Okay, sorry.
It's okay.
I probably need to go in like maybe 10 minutes or so.
Oh yeah, no,
Or,
that's
I
fine.
don't know.
I'm
Okay.
like one question
Oh,
left,
yeah.
so don't worry.
Okay, hang on really quick. Gracie. Gracie. Okay, I'm back.
Okay.
Do you want to, I don't want to mess up the flow, so I don't know if you want to ask it
Yeah, I guess
again
I'll
or I
re-ask
can.
it.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay. All right. So aside from Crisis Text Line, are there any other organizations out there right now that you think are doing really exceptional work providing support for people?
That's a great question. I would say Crisis Text Line is definitely the folks I feel like we point to the most and kind of our closest ally or partner. But I've seen some really good stuff from AFSP, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. I feel like they're doing a lot and really trying to show up online in this time. I see a lot on social media and I get their emails. So I think they would be another one that comes to mind. I do feel guilty of, I feel like I've had my head down a bit and kind of focus on the work we're doing and kind of the stuff that we're trying to create. But AFSP is one. We love pointing people to the Trevor Project. I think just in a ongoing way, just love cheering them on and pointing to them as a resource, obviously, especially for the LGBTQ community. So I think they are another organization that we try to make people aware of. The JED Foundation, which is based in New York, those are friends of ours as well. And I think also I try to look at outside of specifically mental health. So I'm moved by, I follow Everytown and Mom's Demand, and I'm moved by how they are addressing gun violence in this time. I feel like there are all these intersections, right, with mental health, and so thinking about how mental health intersects with domestic violence and with that gun violence. And then I'm a big fan of Preemptive Love Coalition, and they are actually based primarily in Iraq, but have people here in the U.S. And so for them, they're focused on serving refugees and people who are displaced by poverty and violence in this time. And so I think that's another one where it might appear to be separate, but obviously it relates. If you're talking about a person who has no home in this time, certainly that is going to relate to mental health. So I think it also feels important to pay attention to other organizations that are doing different things or meeting needs in different ways than we are right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think I have to, now I'm inspired to look all those people up and see what they're doing. So thank you for sharing that. And then last question for you is, obviously there's so much negativity right now, and like rightfully so. But what do you think are some positives that we are all going to take out of this? Or maybe even just a positive that you're going to take out of this, like a positive mental health lesson or life lesson?
No, that's a great question. I think, man, that is such a good one. I think just the reality that people need people, that we need each other, and we all miss what it was like to be able to consistently be in the same room or to be at a restaurant, to share a meal, to go to a movie or a concert. We miss those things that not long ago made up our normal. But I think this time is pointing out that even while that's canceled, we we still need each other, and we need relationships, we need conversations. And I think it's also really just highlighting mental health in general. I feel like there's so much talk and thought being directed at the mental health conversation as it relates to this moment in time, and just the reality that that it's not just a physical health issue, right? That this pandemic doesn't just affect, it's not just about people getting sick, but that people's mental health, that our mental health matters in the midst of this.
Yeah.
And then I think maybe even a better, more direct answer is just the value in slowing down. I feel like for a lot of people, it's probably been a healthy challenge to have to slow down. There are certainly exceptions. I want to acknowledge people that work in hospitals. My brother-in-law works, he's a grocery store manager. So for him, there's no slowing down. You know, for him, it's been busy and intense and scary, and he's interacting with the public every day. So I think it's also important to point out that some people are working a ton. Some people are on the front lines of this thing. But for so many, you know, probably for you and I, the days do feel longer and it does feel slower. And I think for a lot of people, maybe this time has kind of pushed back at that, the idea of hustle culture or having to always be productive. And just, I think it's forced people to think about, man, there's more to life, you know? And so what do we do with ourselves, and what should our days look like, even when things quote unquote go back to normal, or some version that's closer to normal. I think just hoping people can slow down and just give more thought to, you know, a lot of the things that are true now are true in general, just in terms of the need for connection, the need for conversation, the need to get outside, the need to get exercise. And so my hope is that we can keep thinking about these things even after this pandemic.
Yeah. Well said. I think that's so true, and I think that people really are probably realizing that they've taken a lot of things for granted, and hopefully after this people won't take for granted being able to drive over to your friend's house and hang out. Or I know I am really missing going to coffee shops to write,
Yeah.
which is like the littlest thing, but I miss it so much.
Oh, totally.
But yeah,
Yeah.
so I think those are, but yeah, everything you said, that I totally agree. I think that people who can definitely benefit from slowing down and, you know, listening to our mental health, listening to our minds, listening to our bodies, and doing what's best for us. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for talking to me about all of this stuff.
You're so welcome.
Yeah, I'm so excited for this to go out into the world. I think that a lot of people are going to be really inspired by it, and, you know, hopefully they will. I think that we've given them so much advice and resources in here. So hopefully if anybody who's watching this is struggling with something, they don't hesitate to reach out to get help from somebody.
Yeah, I hope so too. Thanks so much, Ashley. Thanks for being a friend, and thanks for great questions.
Yeah, all right. I will talk to you soon, and maybe see you in the real world someday again.
Oh, I look forward to that.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Talk
Thanks.
to you later. Bye.
Okay, bye. Oh, hey, are you still there?
Yes.
Something happened where I can't see you now. I don't know where you went.
Oh, wait. Wait, hold on. Can you see me now?
No, just I didn't press anything. It's okay. Show chat. No. No, just like a few minutes ago, it changed.
Oh, that's really weird. I hope it didn't like.
No. I think if you can see me, that's.
Yeah, I can see you.
It did this yesterday during our board meeting. It's okay. I wanted to like see you and say goodbye.
Yeah.
Right now, I just see me. But thank you so much, and
Thank you so much.